Hey everyone, we're live. Let me know how the audio is. We're going to be answering questions. We're going to start with the Patreon questions, and then hopefully we get to the live chat questions. We have 10 Patreon questions today. I'll try to go through them as fast as I can, but so we could get to the live chat questions as well. But like, it's great. At some point, I prefer the Patreon questions. Um, for people who don't know, the Patreon questions get priority, and they also actually have to spend more time answering them because they are Patreon questions. Um, and also, it means that even if you're not live here as a patron, you get to send your questions ahead of time, and they will get answered no matter what. Right? The live chat questions, there's no guarantee that I will get to them or that they will get answered, or maybe I will miss them. Right? So yeah, if you want to support the show, you can become a patron. Link in the description. Your questions will get answered. Your questions will get priority, and you don't have to make sure that you're here live to be able to ask the questions. You could just send them and just check the answers later. So that's a benefit that you get from being a patron. Um, Music guy is saying audio is great. Audio is good. Fantastic. Cool. Let's get to these Patreon questions. Let's see. Okay. First Patreon question is from D. D is saying, Burkina Faso is the latest country to be taken over by a military coup, joining African nations of Mali, Guinea, Chad, and Sudan. What do you think this means for Islamists? I'm just gonna say these words now. I'm done dealing with YouTube's algorithm. Islamist terrorist groups. By the way, guys, please like the video because the way when I use these words, we're gonna get pushed down in the algorithm. So feed the algorithm, feed the YouTube gods. They want your likes to make the channel grow just a little bit. It really helps. So make sure you like the videos, okay? So it's like, I mean, this is a product of Islamist terrorism, Islamic ideologies, but also poverty and also climate change, right? So, and we're talking about the Sahel region. I mean, Western Africa, the entire Sahel region, and also the Horn of Africa, you're seeing all of these happening, right? So, like, a lot of people have forgotten about ISIS and Al Qaeda because they have been defeated so a lot around the Middle East area. I mean, apparently, recently there was ISIS attacked the prison that in Syria as well, so that failed, but overall their main activities are in Africa, right, and growing, but nobody gives a crap because there's no oil there, and this is like, and also because this is like the poorest part of the entire planet, right, the whole Sahel region plus the Horn of Africa, right? So there's like the people's lives there don't really matter to anybody, so that's why nobody talks about it. But yeah, it's very active. Like Islamic terrorism is very, very active and growing very fast over there. Um, but also, this is like, I know this might sound boring to a lot of people, but this is why climate change is also very important, right? This is also a huge byproduct of that entire region because, like, a lot of the economy of that region is based on farmers, right? And they're like losing their way of life, so that just feeds into radicalism. It just does very well. People not making, people not being able to provide the way they used to, right? Also, this whole situation in like Faso is fascinating because people were like whole reason behind that coup is that people are complaining about the president and their military because they're not doing a good job in fighting terrorism, right? So the coup is happening by the people. I mean, all the soldiers who are defecting against their own generals, right? Because they're like, you're not giving us enough weapons to fight against these Islamic terrorists. Like, you're sending us into war, and we don't have enough equipment to just defend ourselves, right? So, and not only that, we don't even have food. They're not even giving them food. They're like, they don't even have enough their food rations to be able to, and they're supposed to fight against ISIS, right? Like, what? So that's crazy. And they're like, so they were like, no, and they just like remove their government. They're just like, there's a coup there now. So I don't know, it's just so unstable. That entire place is so unstable, right? And then we have France and United States forces there trying to provide some stability. I don't know what's going to happen. It's so I think it's going to get worse before it gets any better. Yeah. This is why we need greed and energy, guys. Like this is like I know as a secular activist that is fighting against religion, it would be like probably in um you would think I would be motivated to be like saying that this is just this is Islam. Like look, it's just Islam is bad, right? I mean Islam is bad, but this is not just Islam, okay? It's also failed governments, because and also climate change. If it just provides a perfect, it makes up poverty and radical ideas together. Like they just go, that's what's causes stuff like this, right? But again, this is why you need to support clean energy. Okay, it's just like the planet needs this like yesterday, right? Like, I mean, the whole Russia situation would also be a lot easier to deal with if if Germany wasn't like so dependent on Russians' gas, right? So yeah, green energy, we need that. We need that right now. That's what I would say. I don't know. I don't know what else to add. What do you guys think? It's not like I don't see like if people want to just focus on the fact that Islam is a problem. I mean, I don't see any progress we could make right now. In I mean, at least in that region, um, when it comes to atheist activism. I mean, maybe in Nigeria, that is like you can see that some progress, right? But in in more failed state parts, um, in Western Africa or in the Horn of Africa or the entire Sahel region, I don't think like we could be like, oh, how do we go and convince people that Islam is bad around that area? Like, I mean, that is not that is not the right way to think about that over there. Over there is you just have to think about how do we stop these failed states from being failed states? Like the situation is a lot more dire. Like secular activism is not like you don't have any stability. People are like radicalism is expected to grow when people can't even provide for themselves. Like yeah, like telling people like, hey, have you considered like Islam is bad is not the way you could go there, right? Like that maybe in some other African countries makes a lot more sense, especially in Nigeria. But in these places, like you just need to provide stability. Like you need military presence. This is why a lot of people who keep complaining about Western military presence in some everywhere, they're like, oh, what are we doing in Africa? Bitch, you need to be in Africa. You need more military presence in Africa by Western nations. Like um like yeah, this is like they can't defend themselves. They need support. They need some support for stability. And you can't just think like, oh yeah, what? Why do we care? Why do you care? Right? You think that's going to just stay there? You think that's not going to spill to other places? I mean, it's already spilled from Middle East to Africa. You think it can't spill back, and then now you're going to care because now it's going to have an impact on oil prices and inflation. These the same people who keep saying like, "Oh, why are we there? We have no business doing there." They're the same people who will complain about inflation. I mean, if fuel prices go up, that's going to cause inflation and everything else, right? These are the same people who will complain about their leaders of their countries not doing enough to fight inflation. The same people who are saying that, oh, we shouldn't be in these places, right? And what do you want to do? How are you going to fix it? And I mean, that's only if you don't care enough about your fellow human beings. Like you're like, oh, it's their problem, right? Okay, so if you're that much of a psychopath to not care about your fellow human beings, then at least care about the consequences of trade routes being, you know, supply chains being disrupted, and oil prices going to the place. I mean, oil prices going. Yeah, I know. You should care. You should care, and you should, you know, it's funny because a lot of leftists are the same people who say like, "What are we doing here?" And then when you're not there and people are suffering, and you're like, "Oh, we stood by and did nothing." How dare we act like we're the moral ones when we just stood by and saw these crimes happening to our fellow human beings? Like, what do you want, right? If you do nothing, you say we did nothing and we are moral monsters. And if you have military presence there, you're like, oh, we're imperialists and we're monsters again, right? Like, okay, it's damn it if you do, damn if you don't. It's so insane. All right, let me see. I spent a lot of time on that one question. But let me know if that makes any sense. All right, let's go to the next patron question. Ian is asking, what are your thoughts on the United States of Europe? France is pushing for European Union to become a federation in 2023, and what do you think? And do you think this will happen? I'm actually surprised about how serious this suggestion has become, but it is apparently very serious, and I support it as long as, I mean, we need we need another global power. Like, what are the global powers right now? Right, we have United States, obviously, right, and then we have Russia and China, and maybe India will join that list at some point. But like, this is not a good list, right? Like, I mean, France and Germany are powerful, but they're not global powers by themselves, right? And they don't have enough autonomy. Like Europe, as the European Union is just an economic power. It's not a military power, and it doesn't have enough autonomy to make, like, decisions in the way that Russia, China, United States can. Like, there's no centralized authority that could just make decisions. Like, if you have a United States of Europe, you would have its own army. You don't have to vote on everything all the goddamn time. You would have its own, I don't know, like foreign ministry, its own president that could speak for the whole thing. So decision making, it would be a much greater force to reckon with. Right now, the global powers, right, two of the three, I mean, it's good that at least the United States is the most powerful one, but two of the three global powers right now are anti-democratic, anti-liberal, right? What does that do for the direction that the planet goes when it comes to us wanting the values that we want to survive? That's not a good thing. So it would be a great thing is if we added to the global power one entity that was more in line with Western values, or actually let's say Enlightenment values. That could be a balancing. Like, we're like, I mean, long term looking, liberalism is winning, but short term is taking a hit. Authoritarianism is on the rise. Democracy is being attacked and is being threatened. So we want, like, more powers and on a global stage to be on the side of democracy and liberalism, right? And having just United States fighting that fight is like ridiculous. It doesn't give it enough legitimacy, especially given the United States track record and hypocrisy is constantly used as a way to dismiss it as a force for liberalism. I mean, we can see with Russia right now, it's the United States mostly that is pushing back against the force of anti-liberal forces gaining power. It's mostly United States, even though Biden said some things that made it look weak. It's still a lot more aggressive than the rest of Europe. It's like Germany seems to be more worried about the gas getting out of Russia, and France is now trying to do deals with Russia. Like, what the hell? What is this? Pathetic, weak. This is why we need the United States. As much as, like, the United States is the main force standing against these goddamn illiberal forces trying to reshape the planet. Like, we made a lot of progress after World War II. We don't want that to go away, right? Look at all the peace and security, and all the economic progress we've made ever since World War II because of the world order that these Western powers have introduced. And now they're not being as united. We need a united front against Russia and China, right? We need that. I mean, India it would be a great candidate to join all these global forces. Like, if it wasn't for like the goddamn BJP, like at least India would be fantastic, right? I'm hoping, like, in a couple of decades from now, India would become the secular democracy that it's supposed to be, and it could join. Like, we will have three world powers of India, Europe, and United States as a united front against China and Russia's illiberal forces. That would be fun. That would, oh my god, that would be so great. But yeah, we need that. We need that. I mean, right now, right now, Europe is so pathetic against like Russia, right? You have all these internal divisions. I mean, and also, like, I don't like the way France is thinking about the United States of Europe. I prefer, like, as much as I don't like how Germany is still, you know, pussyfooting around when it comes to taking a strong stance against Russia. But that, I don't like that. But I do like the fact that Germany is looking at creating that maybe European force. Like right now, that's more likely for Germany to support that after Merkel leaving, right? And the way they want to do it is that they want to be like in line with United States, like not cutting ties completely with the United States. But the way France is saying it is moving farther away from United States. I don't like that. I do want Europe to become a stronger global force, and that would be becoming a United States of Europe would facilitate that. But I still want them to do that while maintaining unity with United States as a front against. I mean, I do want them to somehow disagree, so that United States is not just like the only voice on a global stage representing democracy and liberalism. I do like them to have some competition, but I don't want them to move away from United States so far that you don't have a united front against like Russia and China. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah, but yeah, United States of Europe is great. Also, like, we saw like a United States of Europe, you can see how important that is when it comes to all the refugees, the migration. It was so pathetic the way Europe had to deal with that. There was no unity. They keep trying to push off the problem against each other rather than all of them coming together, figuring out how to do this, work with the migration crisis as a united front, come up with policies that helps them all. They were all just like trying to reduce the cost to themselves and add it to the other ones. That was pathetic. So having a United States of Europe would facilitate that, right? Also, with this whole pandemic, you can see how important it is that for Europe to have a more united voice and a more united force to deal with situations like that, right? So yeah, it's very much needed, both globally and for the sake of Europe. Maybe the Brexit situation helps that, because one major source of disunity was United Kingdom in Europe. So maybe with getting rid of them, now it's a lot easier to deal with all of that, right? To make it more united. Anyways, somebody's saying, I feel like the EU becoming a federation would realistically be more of a modern Holy Roman Empire sort of situation with a weak central government. I don't understand what you're talking about. This has how it would be the Holy Roman Empire. It has nothing to do with that. With a weak central government, it would be stronger than what they have right now. With a weak central government, it would be stronger than what that. The whole point would be like it can't get any weaker than it can't get weaker than what they have right now as a European Union. So I don't know. It would be an improvement, but I don't know what you're basing that off. Anyways, next question. Ian is asking, do you think Russia will step into war with United States and its allies over Ukraine? Both sides have put their troops and weapons on standby. It would be the most insane thing Russia could ever do. Never say never, but I don't understand what the hell is Russia like suicidal? Like, I mean, if you think about it rationally, the most likely thing that they're trying to do is just to posture and threaten so that they could get some concessions. But I mean, Russia can't afford going to war. Russia would, you know, I mean, it would be the end of him. Yeah, I mean, like, not the end of them as in, it would basically drag them into a war that they cannot win, a multi-year war that they have to pay so much for it, something that they will no way be able to afford. It will threaten the deals that they have with Germany over their gas line that they have, right? And it will unite the Western world in putting more sanctions on Russia. So like it would be devastating. It would be devastating to Russia's economy. Why would they do that? I mean, that would be like, I mean, Russia is already has lost its superpower status, and it's becoming weaker and weaker every year. But this will expect like this will make it their decline much exponentially a lot faster than it already is. Why would they do that? I think it's just posturing. It's just like, I mean, I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I'm just saying if they do decide to go ahead with that, then they're insane. Um, yeah, but just a few things actually about this whole Russia situation. It's so amazing how a lot of leftists, you know, predictably have come and be like, "Oh, we shouldn't be there. We shouldn't like United States shouldn't support like NATO shouldn't be supporting Ukraine. This is an act of aggression." Bull fucking shit. Act of aggression? How is it an act of aggression? Okay, how is it an act of aggression? They're like, Putin is demanding that Ukraine doesn't join NATO. Who the fuck are you to decide what Ukraine does if they want to join or not join? It's not up for you to decide. Like, what happens to a countries like sovereignty and independence? Who the fuck do you think you are to make decisions for Ukraine? Or like, well, it's not my border. So it's not your fucking country. It's an independent country. Like, who do you? I mean, I'm not saying that Ukraine is likely to join NATO, but who is Putin to make demands like that? Like, oh, you don't get to join NATO. Says who? Who made you the boss of the world? And people are like, well, yeah, well, the United States is like, and Western European countries, they don't get to decide. Why not? Like, it's a mutual agreement between two countries, an organization and a country. Nothing is being forced on anybody. Ukraine is an independent country. If they seem to want to be joining NATO, justifiably, given that they've already been attacked by Russia. It's amazing. Like, Russia has already attacked Ukraine, and NATO is like, help? And people are like, okay. And people are like, act of aggression against Russia. Act of aggression against Russia for like defending itself from a country that has already attacked it and invaded and took a whole bunch of parts of it. How is it an act of aggression? This is purely defensive, justifiably so. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think like Ukraine is going to invade Russia? like that's an act of aggression. Like United States sending missiles to Ukraine is an act of aggression. Really? Ukraine was like, Russia was doing nothing, and Ukraine was like, oh, we're going to invade Russia. We a small country, we're going to invade a country with nuclear weapon. Oh yeah, that Ukraine had ambitions to attack Russia without any aggression from Russia before. This was not at all defensive. What the hell is wrong with people? Like, people are like, oh, this is Western imperialism. Russia has the right. Oh, look, NATO is coming to Russia's borders, and Russia has every right to be afraid. Bull fucking shit. Why do you think NATO is? NATO is. Do you think NATO is? Goal is to one day like take over Russia? This is purely defensive. This is all in response to Russians' aggressions. It makes complete sense for countries around that region. If anything, this is like justifies NATO. I mean, I'm so glad that Trump is not in power right now. God damn it. Imagine if Trump was in power with all the anti-NATO stuff that he was saying, right? You can see how important NATO is. Like, Russia keeps complaining about NATO, and then he provides justification for the expansion of NATO. And now countries that never considered wanting to be part of NATO, like I think like there was another countries in Scandinavia. Now we're like, okay, we might want to join NATO as well with all this aggression by Russia, right? They never wanted to join NATO, and like Russia complains about an expansion of something that it is the cause of justification for its expansion. Guys, this is so insane, right? We need like, and also fucking Germany and now also France. You guys better get in line and support like United States over this. Like, this is so bullshit. Like, we are, the whole Western liberal order is under threat. And these countries are like, oh, but we need gas. Bitch, this is like the trend, the direction of things. China and Russia, these are not countries with the values that made the world a better place ever since World War II. Your unity, the unity between Europe, Western Europe, and North American countries, plus South Korea and Japan, right? And Hong Kong and Taiwan, I guess, and all some other countries. That's what stabilized the world. Don't fuck around with that. Russia is such a pathetically weak country right now. You should be able to handle this. They shouldn't be able to threaten this world order that has made the world a more peaceful place. You can't, Germany needs to, Germany and France needs, and and everybody else need to be completely backing United States against Russia right now. Whereas Europe's insistence on like, oh, we need to move off fossil fuels and stuff like that. And now this is not, this is not a time for Western powers to be divided. There needs to be a very strong united front against Russia. And again, another reason why I'm so happy that Trump is not in power. Fucking messing around, like attacking your allies, alienating your allies. Imagine if he was in power right now. I mean, some people might also criticize AUKUS to say like, well, maybe the reason why France is now also talking to Russia about some deals is because of AUKUS, right? So yeah, that's fair. But China was a threat as well. So, anyways, but that's another discussion. Okay. Oh my God, this is the same as the other question. Do you think Putin will back down if West? So I am saying, do you think Putin will back down if the West sanctions his alleged girlfriend from traveling abroad? I'm not joking. I have heard this being discussed. Plus, there are other sanctions of pulling Russia out of international SWIFT transactions and dollar denominations. I haven't heard about this girlfriend part. I just heard Biden talking about um, looking at personal sanctions against Putin. I don't know. I don't know if that's serious. I haven't heard, but the SWIFT part is going to be tricky, right? Because the United States doesn't have. I don't know. Like, that's a European thing, right? I don't know how much control the United States has over SWIFT transactions. I mean, if you do use that, it would undermine SWIFT as well. So that's a thing that you have to consider, right? If more deals happens outside of the SWIFT, because Russia does have some alternative ways to do transactions. But I don't know. But sanctions need to be. I don't know what the right way is to do sanctions on Russia. But yeah, we need sanctions on Russia yesterday. Like, I think like the sanctions should be on already. Like, people are like, oh, if you attack, we will have sanctions. Oh, like, no, you should already have sanctions because of all this posturing, right? There needs to be a more aggressive stance against Russia. I already mentioned the rest of it about, so I'm gonna move on. All right, Mahmoud is saying, "Hi, Armin. Did you come across the methodical methodical analysis of thousands of near-death experience and memories from past life done by researchers at the University of Virginia? The researchers probed into many incidents to remove cultural bias, etc. Also, they investigated past life stories children told and found evidence. Here's a link to the summary video presentation. What are your thoughts?" Okay, the video was 1 hour, so I haven't watched it yet. I might spend some time responding it to it next on the next month's Q&A. So I saved it to watch that, but I think like, I mean, I could already my already existing bias would be to say that it's complete nonsense. I mean, it's impossible. Like it is impossible, right? Where would you store the information? When your brain goes mush, okay, when your brain goes like turns into fucking dirt, okay, there is no unit. You can't hold on to information from one life to another. Okay, what is this? Near death experiences and memories. Okay, so near death experiences, already we already have many studies that show that they're completely natural, and just seeing a tunnel, seeing with the light at the end of it, or other things have been completely explained. um and I'm not going to go over the details right here because, first of all, I don't remember them. I went through them a long time ago. And second of all, information already exists. Near death experiences are completely scientific, have been completely scientifically explained. Okay. They are not anything about heaven or an afterlife or anything. Okay. They're just some things in your brain that happens in response to some chemical reactions near death that makes you see, some lights or feel like your body is being lifted or something like that. Okay, so there's that. Okay, memories from the past life, that is absolutely bullshit. Okay, there is no way. Where would you store the information? Okay, first of all, memories from a past life. So we're saying like what Abrahamic religions are wrong, and um, we're talking about reincarnation. So Hinduism and Buddhism got it right based on this study that you're saying, right? I mean, think about the likelihood of this study being correct. Think about the likelihood of this study being correct. I have to look at what you're sending me because it was too long for me to. You send it to me today. You send this to me today. Wait, 12 hours ago. So I haven't had time to watch a 1 hour video before I go live for this Q&A, right? But memory means you need information to be stored somewhere. Okay, where would the information be stored when somebody dies? It's basically suggesting this. It's the same suggestion that like throwing a hard drive into, I don't know, lava and having it completely melted and be like, oh, I can restore that information, no problem. That's the claim here. Okay, if you don't have the neurons, the connectum, the way the neurons were connected to be able to be the zeros and one for the information of a past life, if you get rid of that completely, where did the information, did it go into the ether or somewhere? How was it stored? Where was it stored? It's insane. The mere suggestion of this being possible is insane. But yeah, I will look at the video and maybe respond to it later. Okay, so next question. D is saying, your thoughts on the present standoff in Syria. What should be done with these people? Well, by these people, you mean ISIS, okay? So let's be careful because people might think we're being racist or something, right? So yeah, great reminder for everybody that ISIS is still present in Syria, and they attacked the prison, trying to free up their buddies. I'm glad that they were unsuccessful because apparently there's like the prison had like, I don't know, 3,500 of them, if I remember correctly. And if they were successful, you would have like another 3,500 ISIS members running around. So good job to the Kurdish fighters who stopped this, right? And made it fail. I heard a lot of children were involved. I don't know how, but that's messed up. Um, yeah, I don't know about the details of how the children were involved, but the Kurdish fighters stopped it. So thank you for that. You know, but however, we need to also address the fact that the Kurdish, the Kurdish people, not well, not the entire Kurdish people, the SDF over there, apparently they have been treating the Arab population there very badly. I don't know how accurate these reports are, and that has fueled um, a recent increase in ISIS popularity, right? So I don't know how accurate those reports are, but if that's the case, they need to cut that shit out. This is how ISIS keeps gaining popularity. It's either because the Kurds are mistreating Arabs, or it's because the Shias are mistreating Sunnis. And every once in a while, when that happens, there's like some people are like, "Hey, maybe we should give ISIS another shot." Hey, not me. I'm not saying that. YouTube, don't strike me down, okay? YouTube, we're not defending ISIS here, okay? Don't strike this video. We're talking about other people's views, right? So, I mean, that fuels radicalism. I'm not saying it's justified, okay? But you should still not discriminate against people, because that's like a recipe for um, radicalization. So, okay, but what about these questions? What should be done with these people? I mean, I don't know what you mean. What should be? They should be in jail. They should stay in jail. I mean, they're ISIS members, but they shouldn't be like tortured. They shouldn't be killed without like. They shouldn't be executed. I don't think they should be executed, right? But more importantly, the Arab population living under Kurdish regions in that area, they shouldn't be mistreated. Okay. Hey, Afshin in the live chat. All right. So, but I don't know what you mean, but what should be done to these people? Like, are you calling for executions or something? Like, I'm wondering if you're calling for like, maybe you're not. Okay, so don't say that I'm putting words. I'm wondering if you think like holding ISIS members in prison is dangerous because they could break free at any moment. Like their buddies might show up and free them at any point. I'm wondering if you're calling for mass execution, because if you are, no. Okay, if you are calling for that, no. Okay, if people are in prison, okay, I don't care if they're ISIS member, you don't mass execute people. That you don't kill unarmed people. That's a no. Okay. All right. Next patron question. Sorry, I'm still recovering. All right. Music guy saying, the Secretary General of Iran's National Organization for Development of Exceptional Talents, or NODET, has said at least 82 out of its 86 young Olympiad medalist winners of international contests in such fields as science, literature, computing, and chess have since left their country of birth. Thoughts? My thoughts is, what happened to the other four? Why are they still in Iran? Well, I mean, and also, by the way, another thing to add to that, Mizo guy, is the fact that they asked to be able to reduce this brain drain from Iran every time there's like a competition or something outside of Iran's borders. They, and also from athletes, like they take a lot of money for collateral. So when they're outside of the country, they're not tempted to just stay, because if they do, they're gonna lose all that money, right? And even with all that money as collateral, a lot of athletes and a lot of like talent like that decides to just say screw with the money, I'm gonna stay, right? I mean, it's completely understandable, though. It's not their fault. I mean, these are people that have so much potential, and their potential is not being met in Iran, right? We have like reports of athletes who don't even have, they don't even get their outfits, like their uniform. They have to pay for it themselves, and they get like, they were complaining about the fact that they only have one uniform and they have to keep washing it themselves. They're getting the like they keep getting mistreated, especially the women. Women, like, they have a guard constantly watching them, trying to make sure that they don't misbehave, or that they're wearing their hijab properly, or that they're not answering questions to journalists that are might be anti-regime. And they're like, they're moved around, like they're completely controlled. And also a lot of them lose a lot of, like, you know you know a lot of opportunities by saying, oh, you can't play with like an Israeli, you can't compete with Israel, this and that. And they have to watch everything they say, and then at any point, if they like step out of line, all their career could be taken away from them. And like, I don't want to deal with that. I mean, a lot of these, like, exceptional talents, right? They know that they are in a position that if they were in any other country, they would be so celebrated, and they would be living such good lives, and they would be paid so much money, right? These are like geniuses, right? And they're like, instead, when they're living in Iran, where they're going to competitions and doing their thing, they have to worry about politics, right? And they have to worry about not saying something wrong, and constantly worried about like things that maybe is not, they don't even want to be involved with. And like, I don't want to fucking mess with this. And they're also not being celebrated the way they would be in other places. So they want to leave. I mean, it's completely understandable. But unfortunately, think about like what that means for Iran, right? Because it's not just these 82 people. There's a lot of talent that is like looking to leave Iran. So much talent, right? Because they're not being valued the way they should be in Iran. And what is that going? I mean, this the cost to Iran as a country is going to be devastating, and in the next couple of decades, when you have your best leading, right? Anyways, yeah, and Iran enjoys a high degree of education level because of the investments that the Shah made before the revolution on education, right? And the impact of that has been so significant. Like, it's so, the initial investment that the Shah made in education had such a major impact on the level of education of the current generation in Iran, right? Um, and all of that is being lost. That's such an untapped potential that Iran could have used to grow, and now all of it is being drained out, and other countries are benefiting from it, right? When the upper or the higher educated Iranians, when they leave Iran, they go to Europe or they go to North America, people somehow notice the effect. People are like, holy shit, how are these people, like, they come and, like, I don't know, they keep like, they are, you see a lot of Iranians in NASA, in the tech industry, in medical industry outside of Iran, right? And they are making significant, and again, this is like, I am so not national and nationalist. Like, I don't have a nationalist bone in my body. So when I'm saying this, it's because it's actually true. Okay. But this is not because, like, yeah, but a lot of people outside of Iran might come with this impression that, oh, all of Iranians are diseducated. Well, like, not really. This is just like the top of the top, trying to get away from the situation in Iran and just be in a place where they're celebrated for the talents that they have, right? So I'm not trying to overrepresent how educated these all Iranians are, right? But the best of the best is you can see the benefit of all that education. The people who are benefiting, the countries who are benefiting from that, is not Iran, it's Canada, it's United States, it's the United Kingdom, you know, so it's Germany, Sweden. Anyways, okay, so I'm not, I mean, make a question shorter. Me, okay, as short as possible. I mean, I don't understand these questions, but if you are suggesting executions, me, okay. What did I do? Okay, I was just wanting to address that, and just in case I didn't. I said I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth. Jesus Christ! I mean, I wasn't. I just used it as a way to address anybody might have that suggestion. Okay, don't get angry, upset with me. Jesus Christ! What did I do now? All right, next question. Bobo saying, is shrimp halal? Asking for my Muslim friend. Yes, yes, shrimp is halal. I mean, shrimp. I mean, shrimp must be halal. We had they selling it in Iran in bazaar everywhere, so they wouldn't be selling it in the streets in front of everybody if it was haram. I don't think. Yeah, I think this is something that everybody agrees. I, why are people thinking shrimp could be haram in Islam? Is it because like Judaism has an issue with shrimp because Islam doesn't? Yeah, Islam has no issues with shrimp. I think yeah, that the pig being haram transferred from Judaism to Islam, but the shrimp didn't. But yeah, it was completely halal. I think shellfish is also halal. Yeah. Anyways, that was a quick one. Okay, Bobo is saying, when will you invite someone to speak about Kashmir and or the ex-Muslim movement in Kerala? Well, I mean, if we do invite somebody from Kerala, we might be putting them in at risk, don't you think? Um, I mean, Bobo, if you're interested, we could have you on and you could talk about it. But if you're not okay with that, that probably might be the same reason why it's going to be hard for us to find some other people, I guess. Especially with our history around that region. I don't know. I want to make sure that we don't put anybody at risk, right? But if somebody is interested, they could reach out to us themselves because we don't spend time hunting people to interview. They need to be an aggressive attempt for them to, because we have had wasted so much time often trying to talk to somebody and then them saying yes and then last minute they canceling, and we have so little time for that, right? So we need somebody, other people, to reach out to us. um Bubble is asking, do you think spreading disinformation should be free speech? Yes, it definitely should be free speech. What would be the alternative, right? um just to be clear, okay, when we say free speech, we're talking about the government getting involved, okay? I am completely okay with limiting or completely eliminating the spread of disinformation on private platforms, right? Like on social media. That's completely justifiable. Not only justifiable, it's recommended, right? Um, that makes complete sense. But that's not a violation of free speech. When we say whether or not something should be free speech, we're talking about whether the government should be able to ban it or not. And I don't think the government should be able to ban it, that form of speech. That would be very dangerous. I mean, again, think about what you're doing. Like, you're introducing like what, a ministry of truth where they get to decide what's this information. I mean, think about what you're opening the door to. You're giving this a central authority, that is the government, the right to decide what is truth and what is disinformation, right? And to ban it accordingly. If that is not if that is not a threat to free speech, if that isn't a threat to democracy, I don't know what is, right? I mean, even if they get the definition of disinformation right, that is there. I mean, I can't imagine that not being misused. There should be no government with the authority to be able to decide what is true for what and what is not true. Again, I am completely in favor of social media, for example, deciding to eliminate disinformation. In fact, they should be, okay? Especially when you saw what the mess with this pandemic, right? But that is not anti-free speech, okay? Free speech means limiting the government's authority, the government's power, right? If the government, any government that gets in the position to be able to limit what people say and what not say, is like, it's not a government that you want to be living under, right? That's not the role of the government. Okay, there are better ways to fight disinformation than this is a cure to disinformation that is more harmful than the disease that you're trying to solve, giving that much authority and power. Like, we need protection from the government. So a government is, government is such a sensitive area, because government is so easy for a government to turn into a tool for oppressing people, right? The main thing that you have against, the main safety that you have against that happening is two things: is to spread the power of the government across so many different branches, that that the government is as at least centralized as possible, right? And the second thing is to be able to hold the government accountable by increasing the power and the voice of people, right? And putting the government in a position where it get to shut people up by labeling what they're saying as disinformation is basically the greatest threat to making the government not something that is accountable to its people. And once you sever that tie, once you basically cut the damage that people could do to the government with their voices, once you create a wall between the people and the government, then the government will eventually go into a direction where it's not something that is the will of the people. It becomes a different entity. So this is such a no-no, right? There are better ways. There are better ways to fight this information than doing anything like that. All right, let's go to the next question. Ibn Ghayyam is saying, why do you continue to cite the outlying Ghanam online poll, not carried by a university? It was carried by a university. And then state most Iranians have left Islam when they contradict Pew and Gallup polls. The Pew and Gallup polls were a lot older, right? And this one, the Ghanam online poll was carried out by a university. It is done by a university. I forgot which university it was, but it was associated with a university, right? Yeah, so this was a lot after those Pew and Gallup polls. So, and the questions were different. So, I'm pretty happy to say that the polls are wrong if there's something more recent, or there's like a legitimate attack. There's so far there has been no attack against the polling method of Gannam. Like, it has been cited by other legitimate organizations, right? There hasn't been any suggestion that the way that they did the polling was unscientific. But if it is, if a person comes and suggests, like, I'm happy to completely be like, if better data comes out, I'm not married to this poll, right? I'm happy to be like, oh, we have better data now, or like that there was somebody that studied their methodology and was not happy with it. Like, this is a good thing. Like, we go by the most recent and best information, and if the most recent and best information comes and contradicts what we have been citing, I'm completely happy to be like, okay, this is wrong now. We have better information right now, right? But as it is, this is the most recent information, and everything suggests that the polling was done very responsibly and very scientifically. There's no serious suggestion by anybody that it was wrong, so I have no problem citing it. Yeah, Ganam is associated with an academic institution, so I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if that's the right. I remember checking. It was like I don't even know if you're okay here. Yeah, fine. I'm not spelling it correctly. Anyways, so let's move on. Okay, that poll that you're citing, Ibn Qayyim, that is like way older than the polls that we're suggesting right now. Okay, everything else, it's not just the Ganam poll, by the way. There's a lot of other polls that shows that the direction is the opposite of what you're saying here. But I'm okay with like I'm completely okay with be like, oh, here's better information. Now we have better information, right? So like this is not something religious for us. We're not like married to it, but it needs to be more than oh, previous polls said this, right? This is the best, most recent, most widespread information that we have, right? So I remember the polling that I saw before this polling was basically taking government data. But anyways, I have to look into that. I wouldn't trust government data. But yeah, but if I'm proven incorrectly, if there's like it needs to be this the suggestion that this poll is wrong needs to be done more by some academic institution that says like, oh, this poll is inaccurate. I'm not going to take accusations against this polling seriously when it's by just average people, especially people who might be butthurt over people in Iran leaving Islam, right? Um, especially people with with that profile picture, Bengayam, right? Who are biased, right? If any serious academic study comes out and suggests that these pollings were wrong, I would be more than happy to be like, okay, we have better information right now. But right now, we're going with the best information that we have. Like it was like, oh, it's only 6 years ago. Only 6 years. Only. Okay. Um. Here's a Susanna saying they've been trying to do ecology, economic projects to regreen the Sahara and help the insurgency problems, but there's been a lot of obstacles. I mean, the best thing is to just stop burning fossil fuels, right? Anyways, so I'm gonna head out now. Let me just block this again. Okay. Wow. Like this, saying LOL and you're not biased. First of all, that's not the way you spell your. Okay, is maybe check your spelling. Okay, if you want to make me look ridiculous, at least maybe like check your spelling. Okay, um, and I never suggested that I'm not biased. Did I ever suggest that I'm not biased? I said if I want to get better information, I will try to find an unbiased source. Did I say I'm unbiased? Obviously, I'm not the source. That's why I'm not saying I am the source. I said I check an unbiased source. I said I check an unbiased source, not you. You are not. I didn't say people should trust me as an unbiased source. Maybe pay attention so that you don't embarrass yourself. Okay. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna head out. And like I said, unlike these religious dogmatic people who are already have made up their mind, and whatever the data says, they will still stick to their conclusions. If I agree that if data shows and comes and contradicts what I believe, I would be more than happy to change my opinion. Okay, but I would change my opinion based on studies that come out, not based on somebody being butthurt in the live chat that they don't like that the data is showing something that contradicts their beliefs. Anyways, thank you guys, and thank you for your support. Again, make sure you like this video before leaving, okay? Make sure you subscribe to this video. And if you would like to support the show, please become a patron. Link to the Patreon is in the description. Yes, Music Guy saying everybody like the stream. Everybody like the stream, yes. And also, yeah, recommend the show to as many people as you can. And yeah, if you want your questions to definitely get answered and get priority, you could become a patron for that as well. All right, link in the description. All right, bye.